Support for Donnybrook is provided in part by Design Air Heating and Cooling.
Seems fair to me. Well, if you don't know what fair is, you can't make it. Unacceptable by any reason.
Donnybrook is made possible by the support of the Betsy and Thomas Patterson Foundation and the members of 9PBS.
Thank you for joining us for another edition of Donnybrook, our last before the big mayoral election in the city of St. Louis Tuesday. So let's meet the panelists and get right to the topic, starting with the media veteran herself, Wendy Wiese, Bill McClellan from STLtoday.com, Joe Holleman from the Post-Dispatch and STL Today, and from the St. Louis American, Alvin Reid. Bill, you've got an announcement to make, but first I do want to announce that Wendy is going into the St. Louis Media History Hall of Fame April the 23rd at the Sheldon, and tickets are available at stlmediahistory.org. You're joining some you deserve this. And some others are lucky enough to join you, like Mike Bush and Mike Shannon, and the list goes on and on. That should be a great evening.
You guys all know how that feels. It's very humbling. It's very overwhelming, but I'd love to see as many people there as possible because it is a fundraiser for the St. Louis Media History Hall of Fame, as you said.
You got it. stlmediahistory.org. Bill, you've got a few words to share.
Yes, I do. I'd like to apologize for and correct the statement I made last week. I had come from the Matthew McCullough sentencing, and I said that I thought the state rolled over, and I based that on 3 questions at the end of cross-examination that I thought the prosecutor asked. And it turned out the judge asked those questions, not the prosecutor. By way of explanation, the courtroom was limited to relatives of the defendant and relatives of the people making victim impact statements. So in the spillover courtroom, we had a video feed, and it did not show the judge or the witness box. So I mistakenly thought that the prosecutor asked the questions. I don't mean that in a way of defense. All the other reporters were in the same room, and I'm the only one who made the mistake. I have apologized to Melissa Price Smith and to Jessica Hathaway, who was the prosecutor. And I'd like to apologize to any viewers who watched last week and thought I knew what I was talking about, because I did not. So, thank you, Charlie.
Just a quick addendum to that. I owe Chris King an apology because I went berserk on him in the wake of this, and he didn't deserve it. So, Chris, I'm sorry.
Okay.
That's a spokesman for the prosecutor's office.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. And by the way, this was not my decision to open the show with this. You guys want to do this, so fantastic. How many people in the journalism world do that?
Accountability.
I'm telling you.
Wow.
I'll call Ripley for the next edition, believe it or not. Hey, Joe, the mayor of St. Louis has been pretty busy. As we know, she did not do too well in the primary, losing to her challenger, Kara Spencer, but they face off again Tuesday. Since then, the mayor has raised the workhouse. She's opened a digital classroom. She got the endorsement of abortion. The group is
Abortion Access.
Abortion Access. That's right. And then last weekend, the mayor of Chicago is here, and the two of them were knocking on doors, really going from one door to another, trying to get the votes. All combined, does this sum of her efforts mean that she's got a chance of winning re-election Tuesday?
Of course she has a chance. And I think there's nothing like a 35-point loss that wakes you up to the fact that you have some work to do. So, I mean, not only is also Alderwoman Spencer is out knocking on doors and doing the same thing. This is crunch time for both of them. But when you look at the magnitude of the loss that an incumbent mayor suffered a month ago, that should wake you up to the fact that this isn't a couple of people here or there, and that you need to get out and knock on doors and do things. So you bring in all your connections and, full court press time. And I think that's a smart move on Mayor Jones's part because she has a big chunk of ground to make up.
And I think that would have to be people who just did not vote the first time.
Right.
And that would be the number that would have to change because, like you said, the size of the chasm between them in the primary. I don't know, boy. I don't know. It won't be 30, but I can't see it being single digits. But we'll see. I think she has a chance.
Well, it would be a stunning comeback if she overcame this.
Well, we've seen weird things happen at the ballot box.
Yeah.
But I thought it was a little unusual, two things. Joe, you reported that abortion access has kind of split the reproductive freedom community. Not only are they supporting Tashara Jones, but they're actually lambasting Kara Spencer, who, whether you are for or against abortion, she has been for reproductive freedom her entire political career. Also, Brandon Johnson is not a very popular mayor of Chicago, so of all the people she could have brought in to knock on doors, I thought he was a curious choice.
Well, I mean, he's mayor of a major city, and he's black, and I mean, that checks 2 boxes. I mean, I'm not being facetious or anything.
No.
I mean, that's just a reality.
And I think it's also the marquee value. A lot of people aren't following around. Most people, you probably had to go, this is Brandon Johnson. He's the mayor of Chicago. And it's like, oh, hey, she got the mayor of Chicago in here. So, yeah, I mean, bring in anybody famous. You know,
I thought of the George Orwell book, Homage to Catalonia, about the abortion rights thing. When Orwell was fighting as a young communist in the International Brigade, it turned out that the big communists back in Barcelona were fighting with each other over who was purer. And Orwell got wounded, and he ended up having to flee, not from the fascists, but from the communists, because it turns out that they claimed his regiment was a reactionary one.
Yeah. Well, isn't that funny? Because I thought of that same book. No, I did not. I never even heard of the book. No, you can't bring this intelligence to the broadcast.
But what's really important is that Kara Spencer, and I'm sure Tashara, Mayor Jones as well, they're just talking about getting out the vote. And frankly, I think we're all going to be most interested in the numbers and the turnout that day. So hoping that everybody will.
Because it was 17% turnout in the primary.
Correct.
And then we go to the county, Wendy, where there's a measure in front of county voters which would allow the county council to fire department heads, like the head of Parks and Recreation or Streets or Health. Not the police chief,
Correct.
I believe, as the county executive insists. I think he's wrong on that matter.
He is wrong.
But he's opposed to this measure. The county council would like to do what apparently a lot of municipalities in the state do. They allow their board of aldermen or their city council to get rid of department heads. Do you think that should happen in the county?
I actually do, and I am siding with Dennis Hancock on this because it just makes sense, and it's not going to be off with their heads willy-nilly. It's going to have to have. They have to have 2/3 of the county council. They have to have the attorney with them, and so the fact that Sam Page is so adamantly against it. And he believes and predicts chaos in the wake. And Greater St. Louis Inc. is saying that it's going to politicize, a highly charged, politicized county council. I think it's all. I mean, that horse has left the barn, hasn't it?
Right.
I mean, so when the St. Louis County Circuit Court judged or they issued the ruling that it was the language was too confusing, and then the state came back and said, no, it's not, it stands. It's already politicized. I think that's what the county council is for.
No, Wendy, the county executive is supposed to have something to do, and the idea that the board in saying that, well, they need 5 or whatever, they're already aligned against Sam Page, and I think it would be chaos if the board, just to show Sam Page a lesson, started firing the department heads.
I think we're getting a look at what that works like at the federal level right now. Also, I think you have to step back and say, come on, let's not pass any law that's based on the fact that these current set of people don't like each other. That's not even politics. That's just bad policy. So I'm not has Sam Page been an exemplary, leader of St. Louis County? Heck no.
Well, there's your answer.
Right.
That's your answer.
Wait a minute. Has the county council been an exemplary body legislation? Heck no. So neither one of them should be
There's some dysfunction.
Yeah.
I mean,
but you
there's
can't.
some dysfunction on
You
both
should
sides
not
of that
leave
table.
it up to the council to now fire people, because people are going to get fired just because they're Sam Page's people.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it could reverse itself in the future because let's say, for example, now you've got problems with the health director or some other, and you happen to side with the county council. Well, that could reverse itself. There could be a day when you really like the department heads very much, but the county council is out of control. And,
And that's what he's saying. Yeah.
I think, and that day would come sooner or later.
Yeah, that's right. Bill, I want to ask you about Doug Vaughn, longtime Channel 4 reporter who is now on 101 ESPN in the morning. He's on a program with Tim McClellan and who else?
Martin Kilcoyne.
Martin Kilcoyne. And they made the New York Times this week because Vaughn lifted an unsubstantiated rumor from the internet and he ran with it. This rumor said that an Ole Miss student had an affair with her boyfriend's father, and it turns out she's denying the allegations. And Vaughn not only, recreated it through some sort of dramatic reading, the text messages, which he found on the internet, but it was part of an ongoing series called Infidelity Alley. Anyway, apparently the woman and her lawyer have Doug Vaughn and the radio station in their sights because the New York Times yesterday cited them and others around the country who maligned this co-ed. What do you make of this? Do you think that, for example, Doug Vaughn should maybe do what you do? Stand up there and say, hey, I'm sorry, or at least, or if he's not sorry, deny that he did it?
Oh, of course I think you should apologize. I mean, I've been wrong a lot in my long career, and I think that you have to acknowledge when you're wrong and apologize. This might be more complicated because, maybe they have legal counsel who says, you can't do this. But it's also, as Joe was saying, bro radio. I mean, these people like to insult women, and it's so maybe this. But of course, I think he should apologize.
Yeah, I think we look at the side is this is being, in my mind, determined by attorneys who have already said, nobody admits doing anything wrong here. We don't say a word about it. We pretend like it didn't happen. And what that is it's honestly, it's just trashy. First of all, the fact that you were talking about it in the first place. The fact that there's a show called Infidelity Alley shows you the level of intellectual acumen that we have working here when that's the title of your show. And then you read what's basically a sleazy story about, what, a 19, 20-year-old kid?
Yeah.
Why? What was that supposed to do other than to titillate your listeners? It was done for the lowest base purpose, and it snapped back on them, and that's the way it
Well,
goes.
and I mean, it's bad enough when you have these roundtable discussions with these, 20-something sports / bros of radio or whatever. But when you've got somebody like, Doug Vaughn, who I have always sort of just compared him to a glass of milk. I mean, the guy has always been just a wholesome sportscaster, so he's got kids. I'm sure that if he could do it again, he would rather that he hadn't. And we don't know what was going on in the studio on that particular day, but I certainly do hope that he will, down the road, once the lawyers sign off on it, as Bill so gallantly showed us how to do it, apologize.
Well, I mean, knowing Doug and sitting with him on the stage and being inducted to the Kirkwood Hall
Yeah.
of Fame at the same time, it's like that Doug knows better. And I just think that it was just like a momentary
in the spirit of the moment
lapse
where they were all
or
just,
something. So,
yeah.
I mean, I don't know what to say other than I look forward to him saying like, hey, blew it on that one, and I'll be careful about
but when
If
the
the
New
New York
York-
Times allegations are true, we're only getting one side of the story. We haven't heard what 101 ESPN indicates, although the reporting says that this Infidelity Alley, where he had a dramatic reading of her text messages,
Yeah.
Right.
was shared
And the
by
story-
the station on social media on 4 of their sites, which have now been removed.
Right, and then also the story is not true. Now I think it's been proven that it just is not true.
That's correct.
Right,
No,
about
that's
this-
what I mean.
about this
but,
young
but
lady.
what did Doug actually
Yeah.
say? I don't know.
We don't, because I did not hear it. All I read
But
was a New York Times article.
In this world, from the White House to the Howard Stern show, there's not much evidence that your career is hurt when you lose good taste.
Well, I mean, I don't think ultimately he would lose his job over this, other than maybe if they got sued and their best one-on-one decided that, hey,
Right.
either the whole show's got to go or you got to go.
Well, the whole show is new. I mean,
Well-
Randy Carricker was just.
I think it's not anything new, though. I mean, H.L.
Right.
Mencken said no one ever went broke, underestimating the taste of the American public. So, but what we found out now is, and especially with social media, which has just absolutely exponentially made this grow on, is any rumor, any hot take is fair game, and let's talk about it, and then later go, oh, well, that
Oh,
wasn't
sorry.
true.
Did you remember Ben Thomas's Evening World crime show?
Yeah.
I mean, he had a standing feature, Wife Beaters and Sweetheart Mistreaters. And that sounds like Infidelity Alley.
Well, but except that was factually true because that
Well,
came
that's
out of
the
the police.
truth.
That was,
Yeah.
that was right.
I mean,
But at
Exactly.
least they were charged with it.
Yeah, we had
Right.
a different charge. But
Yeah.
there's a quick story. I was working the Saturday morning at 101 ESPN when Jerry Sandusky got arrested at Penn State. And I remember reading that, and every 10 seconds, I said, I am reading this from a report by ESPN and the police, because I'm thinking, man, somebody's going to get in their car with their kids going to soccer practice this morning, and I want them to know that Alvin Reid just ain't went off on no wild tangents. And let me tell you what I heard Jerry Sandusky did. I'm still real cognizant of what I say here and what I say on the radio, because it's just, yeah.
The third rail.
Yeah, right.
But I must say, between references to H.L. Mencken and George Orwell, this really
Yeah, I think
is.
we're- I think
Yes.
we're-
Hey, don't
We're
blame me,
looking
H.L.
very-
Mencken. but
Okay,
that's-
yeah.
looking
Hey,
very high
Alvin
brow.
Reid.
That's right. It's newspaper guy.
Alvin,
All right.
Alvin Reid, we're waiting for your literary reference.
I'm going to try to pull one out.
There was a tragic story this past weekend, I believe it was Sunday night. A 4-year-old passenger of a motorcycle was killed when the motorcycle driver, apparently the 4-year-old's mother's boyfriend, crashed into a utility pole on Mexico Road near Fort Zumwalt South. The 4-year-old died. I looked it up. There are some states, including some red ones, like Louisiana, Arkansas, Texas, that have minimum age requirements for motorcycle passengers. You got to be at least 5 in some of these states. It's also true in Hawaii and Washington. Do you think with this tragedy, we might have some Kelvin Spurlock law, that's the name of the boy, and we'll change the law in Missouri to require passengers of motorcycles to be at least 5 or 6 years old?
I think someone will attempt to do that, and they will fail. I don't think our legislature will pass a law that would keep a motorcycle person from having their 4-year-old on the back. That's an infringement of that's my rights, and it's ridiculous. But I do not see this state taking that action.
There are no limits on ATVs. I could have sworn that kids, because we've had these stories before with ATVs, they were both wearing their helmets. It's an agonizing story to read, but I'm not. I wouldn't be happy with a 5-year-old limit. I mean, I would say 11 or 12-year-old limit instead of 5. I mean, what?
Well, this is a state where you don't have to wear a helmet to ride on a motorcycle anyway.
But I think there's and maybe it's my wishful thinking. I'm hoping that by saying I believe a law will be changed. For one, and nobody's ever confused me with a person who wants more government. Okay, so no one's ever put me down on that side of the room. I thought there was a rule. I remember
too.
when I
I
saw
did
the
too.
story, I thought, oh man, they must have got this guy for endangering the welfare of a child. And then I read to realize that we don't have a rule and that a bunch of other states don't have rules. And I literally was surprised. I just thought, to me, it makes so much common sense. 5, 6, 8, or my gosh, like the amusement park where you have to be this tall
Six Flags.
to be on there. I mean, I just thought there was something existed. So what I'm hoping is, and I concede Alvin's point, and I am also one who doesn't like seeing rights abridged, and I don't necessarily have a problem when a grown human being doesn't want to wear a helmet. That's different than a child on a motorcycle, and I hope that the Missouri legislature understands that, and that because politicians are always swayed by, we're doing it for the kids.
Yep.
I'm hoping they do change the law and put it in.
From what I read, that this child had been on another motorcycle accident before this one. So that led me to believe, one, I was like you, that I thought there probably already was a law. But two, just think about how many kids had been injured in this way, like let's say over the last 10 years, and you would have thought that somebody would have said, like, why are kids on the back of motorcycles anyway? So I guess maybe it took a death, unfortunately, to actually.
Probably.
Exactly.
Oh, God.
Hey, Bill McClellan, speaking of roadways, there was a meeting yesterday in Jefferson City trying to figure out if the legislature should create a commission to examine the numerous billboards in the Show Me State. You drive down Highway 70, you see a lot of billboards, as you know. This is really promulgated by a group called Scenic Missouri. But this commission would also take a look at the litter on our highways, as well as maybe the plant material, the trees, the flowers that are on the side of the highways. Do you think it's time for a study like that?
Well, I don't mind the billboards, and like I kind of enjoy when you go down 44 and you see on barns, that Merrimack Cavern or Jesse James stayed here. And all the billboards aren't that good. And the old days when there was that shaving cream.
Burma shave.
Yeah, I mean, those were kind of fun. But, I mean, I don't mind the billboards. And if somebody can make some money by letting a company put billboards on their property, I'm not objecting to that.
Well, I will say, when you drive through West Virginia or Indiana and many other states, Arizona, for example, you just see the beautiful landscape, and I think it enhances the state. Now, the billboards are one thing, but I think Scenic Missouri should also concentrate on the litter.
Sure.
And why not put some Missouri wildflowers on the side of the highways as opposed to the concrete riprap like we're seeing a lot of right now in North County near Florissant. And I think that we could do better. I don't want to channel my inner Mrs. LBJ, but I do believe that.
I agree that we could. What I don't think we need to do is spend $1 million on a commission. To do what? To say what you just said? Maybe we should plant some more flowers. Maybe we should have less billboards. I mean, but so now we're going to appoint a commission that's basically, my guess, go to lunch and dinner a lot and then tell us, well, and they're going to come up with some report that's going to tell us everything we already knew. But I got to say, I'm like Bill. I don't mind billboards. I am not offended by them. People go, well, it destroys the scenic beauty and it's a danger. Well, actually, you're either looking at a billboard or you're looking at the scenery, when I prefer you're looking at the road.
And Arizona, I think that scenery is a little more spectacular than, I like driving down 44, but I don't think it's like the best scenery in the country or anything.
It's not breathtaking.
Right.
Well, it's because we live here, though. I'm going to
Right.
say
Well,
Missouri is one of the most
true.
beautiful
It is very
states in the
pretty.
union.
It is very
We live
pretty.
here. We see it all the time.
Yeah.
True. And I have probably made the drive between the Kansas City area and St. Louis
More than
most
anybody.
Missourians. Okay. And I do remember there were no signs. I'm not appalled by the signs. I also think this is another thing that the legislature is not going to tell these people with land that they cannot put a billboard up there. And I just wish there were more cows because I really like when I'm driving
I'm
along.
much more concerned with the litter than anything else, than even the billboards.
Well, we did put in daffodils at the Skinker exit of 6440. You can see them right now. They're blooming, and I hope people enjoy them. Maybe we can do more of that in the future. Wendy, we only have about a minute to go, but MoDOT decided to remove those bump outs, those traffic calming concrete islands on Clarkson Road in Chesterfield. Are you happy or sad?
I am happy and I am confused because Tom Blair, who's the district engineer for MoDOT, he said that that this idea when it was floated, $58 million worth, and those weren't just the bump outs. It was part of a larger project. He said that there wasn't any allowance made for public opinion. And people apparently, thank goodness for Ben Keithley, because
Who's Ben Keithley?
Ben Keithley is a city councilman out in Chesterfield, correct?
I thought he was a state rep.
He's a state rep
Oh, I'm
now.
sorry,
Yeah.
state rep, started on the city council. But yeah, he said people are up in arms and they can't get them out of there fast enough, but they will be gone soon.
So do you have to like jackhammer those things out of there? You
I
can't
don't
just
know.
scoop them out. That'll be nice. Yeah. People
but-
complain
but
about the
people were-
noise.
People were very upset about them.
Y'all be having wild parties out there in Chesterfield too. I saw that
Oh,
online.
my gosh, right?
Always good to hear that there was no public input. Well, now the public got its input.
They're going to get their input
Yeah.
one way or another.
Maybe that's what they were writing about at the Glorilla concert. The bump outs.
The bump
I don't
outs.
know. Yeah. Okay, hey, let's go to the old mailbag and see what people had to say about last week's show. Charlie expressed surprise at the cost-plus nature of the F-47 contract. This is normal and proper in defense procurement since it shifts development risk to the government. If the Air Force wants an airplane better than what opposing air forces can field, it has to share the development risk. That from John Kipp of Chesterfield. We also heard from Ray Bosenbecker of Chesterfield. I was appalled by the Donnybrook provocateurs' demeaning comments related to the Air Force award of the F-47 to Boeing, a highly regarded company employing thousands of highly skilled workers in our area. Both McDonnell Douglas and Boeing have decades of experience developing effective, sustainable, upgradable, and stealthy aircraft for the U.S. military. Thank you, Ray. And we heard from Patty Smith of Kirkwood. When Matt McCullough fired those shots in the air, he put the children and parents at risk for serious injury or even death. Recall when the woman at the Cardinals game was hit by a stray bullet from outside the stadium in May of 2017. Thank you. And Glenn Perron of Hazelwood wrote, with the understanding that Charlie is the provocateur, hearing him actually compare the McCullough incident saying, how many people shoot guns into the air? What? I have watched and enjoyed Donnybrook for many decades. Tonight may be the last time I can stomach this nonsense. You can write us, care of 9PBS. Don't forget that zip code 63108. Emails at donnybrook@9pbs.org. And on social media, use hashtag DonnybrookSTL. Call the 9 line, won't you? At 314-512-9094. And listen to us on your favorite podcast source. And watch us, oh yes, at Donny Bash, May the 8th at the Sheldon. It's our big fundraiser. Get tickets today. And of course, watch us on the 9PBS YouTube channel when we get to some topics that we ordinarily don't have time for, including, wow, with the stock market going down like it did today, and if it doesn't reverse itself soon, could Missouri become a blue state? Think about that. We will discuss that and see you next week at this time. Thanks.
Donnybrook is made possible by the support of the Betsy and Thomas Patterson Foundation and the members of 9PBS.